This is an engineering test transmission of the Independent Broadcasting Authority. These tests are to prepare for the start of independent local radio in the Greater Manchester area on the morning of Tuesday, April the 2nd by Piccadilly Radio. The programmes of Piccadilly Radio, from Piccadilly in the centre of Manchester, will be heard on 261 metres medium wave and also on 97 MHz exactly VHF, the same frequencies as these test transmissions. Piccadilly Radio will start at 5 o'clock in the mornings, an hour later on Sundays, and run right through to 2 o'clock the following morning, providing entertainment, news and information for listeners in the Greater Manchester area. On VHF, most of the music will be in stereo, and you'll often find that VHF reception is clearer, especially after dark, than is possible on 261 metres medium wave. Radio dealers will be glad to explain what equipment you need to listen in full stereo. This is the Engineering Information Service of the Independent Broadcasting Authority.
This is Ashton Moss MF transmitter. It sits on a large plot of land next to the M60 motorway to the east of the city of Manchester. 1974 saw the launch of Piccadilly Radio on 261 metres medium wave on Tuesday the 2nd of April of that year. An IBA engineers van sat close to the transmitter site in the March to make sure that the test transmissions went ahead as planned. The whole test was recorded onto a reel-to-reel inside the Land Rover, and what you heard at the start of this video was just part of the original 2-hour recording. It does exist online, but that recording is incomplete and is of lesser quality. The transmitter consists of 4 guide masts in a straight line, except they're not entirely in a straight line. One mast in particular is especially out of line, but why? Well, the 4 masts form a highly directional array, radiating the signal in a tight pattern west across Manchester. There are many reasons why an MF system might use a directional array. It could be to enhance the field strength in either a general or specific direction. It could be to limit RF radiation in either a general or specific direction. It could also be to limit RF radiation in more than one direction with more than one radiated service, or it could be to limit RF radiation in more than one direction for one radiated service. Ashton Moss does exactly that. It limits RF radiation in more than one direction for one radiated service. The transmitter's input power is 350 watts, and the directional gain of the antenna produces 1.5 kilowatts of effective monopole radiated power in the direction of maximum power, 250 degrees, originally on 1151 kHz and later 1152 kHz. So why build such a directional array? Well, other radio stations used 1152 kHz before and after the construction of Ashton Moss. The IBA built a 4-mast array at Langley Mill in Birmingham for the launch of BRMB radio in February 1974 on 1151 kHz before it moved to 1152 kHz. There was also Saffron Green, a similar 4-mast directional MF array near Barnet in North London that entered service in March 1975. Then there was Greenside near Newcastle, which worked in exactly the same way as Saffron Green except slightly less directional, and also Dechmont, a 3-mast array near Glasgow, home to Radio Clyde, which launched on the 31st of December 1973. So we have 5 huge high-powered MF transmitters, all on the same frequency. They, like Ashton, are all directional arrays. The Langley Mill masts are sited to the northeast of Birmingham so that a tight beam can be directed in the southwesterly direction across Birmingham, therefore avoiding Ashton. Saffron Green is built in a way that it radiates towards London while radiating virtually no power at all towards Birmingham. Further north, Greenside is built so it doesn't radiate towards Ashton or Dechmont, which brings us to Dechmont, to the southeast of Glasgow, whose array beams to the northwest, 330 degrees, to avoid Greenside. The IBA planned and built these highly directional antennas so as to avoid interference to all of the stations using the same frequency. The master Ashton that's slightly out of line is only out by around 4 or 5 metres, and it creates a signal null in the direction of Langley Mill in Birmingham to help avoid signal clash between Piccadilly and BRMB. Now, of course, those who follow commercial radio will be asking, why do you keep saying Piccadilly? In 1999, the parent company of Piccadilly Radio, EMAP, rebranded the station as Magic 1152. Then, on the 5th of January 2012, Magic 1152 was rebranded as Key 2. On the 7th of January 2019, Key Radio branded as Greatest Hits Radio Manchester. Now again, those who follow commercial radio will be telling me I've missed the most obvious and the saddest part. In February 2021, Bauer announced that it would close Greatest Hits Radio's medium wave service on 1152, marking the end of 47 years of broadcasting on the former AM frequency for Piccadilly Radio. The AM transmitter at Ashton Moss ceased broadcasting on the 28th of April 2021. BRMB renamed to Free Radio Birmingham in March 2012, but the 1152 kHz allocation operated as Extra AM from 1989, and a succession of other names before becoming Free Radio 80s in September 2012. The 1152 kHz service eventually came to an end on the 30th of June 2020. On a side note, Asian Sound transmits on 1377 kHz from this site, using this white monopole antenna located north of the main 1152 kHz array, and this service runs 80 watts. Asian Sound was granted its permanent license in August 1995 and successfully launched on the 3rd of June 1996 as the first Asian radio station in the north of England to cater for the South Asian communities. So that's it, the Ashton Moss array sits there unused, passed by thousands of people travelling on the M60 every single day who probably don't notice it and especially don't realise its importance. Sadly, one day, like the signals it radiated, it's likely to disappear forever.
The IBA is responsible for both independent television and independent local radio. For both, it owns and operates the transmitters and appoints the programme companies. It's responsible for the programme companies and also for the programme standards. It controls the advertising and establishes the technical standards. This is an engineering test transmission in preparation for independent local radio in Greater Manchester. On April the 2nd, you'll be able to hear Piccadilly Radio.
Piccadilly, hit music. Hit music.
This is an engineering test transmission of the Independent Broadcasting Authority. These tests are to prepare for the start of independent local radio.